Excellent. So, welcome to Humans vs. AI, the movie.
Whee!
And today I have a very special guest, Sam Joseph. Hello, Sam.
Hello. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are a comedian and you're going to be performing at the Comedy Cat this evening. But another thing that's really interesting for me to have you on is that you are very much within the computer space.
Yeah, and in fact, that's how I earn my money. I mean, we all know how well comedy pays.
Yeah, exactly.
But, so I've been involved in programming computers and machine learning for a very long time, and PhD in machine learning before it was cool and funky. And I have to say, my mind is being blown by the last 5 years of explosion in AI tech, particularly the recent GPT-4.
Are you agreeing that we should pause on 6 months, or is this just Elon Musk having buyer's remorse at Twitter and wanting to stop OpenAI now that they're trying to make money from the thing he invested in?
I think it's maybe too late. I think, we are definitely in extraordinarily dangerous times, and it could go either way. But I think that, I've been discussing all my fellows discussing this 6-month pause thing. It seems, almost impossible to enforce. I think, what we need to do is try and work out how to adapt to the way that the world is changing around us.
I think what we need is a better language model than Twitter. As the basis for the future of humanity, online trolls and sniping is not necessarily the best language model to draw from.
Not necessarily. No, I mean, I think that's. I mean, you've got this double-edged sword of OpenAI. Was open. They're now not. We're now not clear exactly what data it's been trained on. We're not clear exactly how it's been trained. The technology is extraordinarily powerful. So, earlier today, I was asking GPT-4 about a technical problem, programming one that I had failed to understand. It understood it, and it took me through blow by blow how to understand it. It operated, as far as I can tell, flawlessly in terms of helping me boost my understanding. And that would be remarkable if it had been designed specifically for, helping, for example, with computer science problems. Mm-hmm. But it's not. It's like doing it across the board for medical, legal, absolutely everything. I mean, for this kind of technology to be in the hands of everybody all around the world, I mean, you can sort of see why OpenAI would want to shut it down. But it is an extraordinary breakthrough that I just never thought I was going to see in my lifetime.
And here I am reducing it to a comedy podcast.
Well, I mean, a man after my own heart, because, I'm working on this new startup idea called Punchline Partners, which is all about using GPT-4. I've got early access to the API, and it is actually remarkably good for a computer at generating jokes, at helping you sort of brainstorm off jokes and so on. So I'm planning exactly the same thing. Let's laugh all the way to the apocalypse.
I think the most useful thing for creators with ChatGPT is that you no longer have to face the horror of the blank page. Because either it's got an idea that you like and you can embellish, or you can go, God, that's terrible, I can do a lot better than that. But it gives you a starting point and a sounding board and a researcher there for you right away to check on things.
It absolutely does. I mean, I guess there's the devil's advocate position for that is that perhaps the tyranny of the blank page, there is some value in that. If we're always reaching to something like GPT-4 to kind of kickstart our imagination, are we perhaps not developing the muscle, which is actually the bleeding brow, getting us there? I mean, who knows? I mean, I've been using it on and off with, helping with my jokes, for the last couple of weeks. I've been pair programming it for the last couple of weeks. It is an extraordinary piece of technology.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it a challenge. And the idea to give it a challenge is that we're going to give it 5 prompts. So these are the prompts that I'm giving ChatGPT and giving you these prompts as well.
Right.
So the first one, actually, I'll ask you a question with films and sort of stuff like that. Yeah. Is there a particular type of film that you love, a particular type of film that you hate, that you hope you will or won't get prompts for?
Well, I mean, I am a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Mm-hmm. I'm also, big fan of the Lord of the Rings films. It's sort of action, sci-fi, adventure. I'm rewatching Avatar with my children at the moment. It's I just love extraordinary and different worlds being explored in films.
I think from the prompts here, extraordinary and different may be baked into the package. If it's challenging for you, it's also challenging for the AI.
Right.
So the film genre,
yes,
is an animated animal film.
Animated animal films.
So
okay.
All the way from, The Secret of Nim to Rango to, lots of A Bug's Life. So the idea is it's not necessarily going to limit you.
Sure.
But, it could be stop motion, it can be whatever you want.
Yes.
But it's An animated animal.
An animated animal film is what we're going for here.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, you can have Jan Svankmajer. It could be a horror, that
sure,
you've had.
Sure. As long as there are animals that are animated in it,
yeah.
I'm on target. Yeah.
Okay, so the location is a factory in the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I had been thinking I was going to put them somewhere in a gas giant around Alpha Centauri, but okay, fair enough.
Okay. The action sequence may be more in line with that. The action sequence is a hoverboard battle.
Okay, right. That's, yeah, all right, out of left field.
And the profession is a cafe owner.
A cafe owner, okay.
And finally, the noun, the random object that has to have some key importance to this plot, is a crystal skull.
Is a crystal skull, okay.
All the way from Indiana Jones to Dan Aykroyd's vodka. I mean, whatever you feel.
Oh, yes, what we can do with the... So I'll just run through those there. So we've got... It's an animated animal film, and it's set in a factory during the Industrial Revolution.
It has to feature a factory set in the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
With all of these things, these are prompts that need to be ticked off.
Rather than be the whole thing.
So think of... was it... Avi Arad, who had the idea that he really wanted a giant mechanical spider in a movie, and when they were doing Superman Lives, he got Kevin Smith to make Brainiac's final form a giant mechanical spider, and then it turns up later in Wild Wild West.
Yes, indeed.
So imagine these as sort of like producers saying, "My kid loves, those animated animal movies.
Yeah.
What's not getting enough play? The Industrial Revolution."
Yes, indeed.
But he was really liking the original Transformers movie, and they've got that hoverboard chase at the moment, like something more like that. I think maybe we could do in some cross-promotional work, maybe with Starbucks, which doesn't seem to make sense in an industrial setting, but let's just make it a cafe owner, right?
Cafe owner, right.
And then, Crystal Skull, because, I think they had a really, really good idea with that Indiana Jones movie, but, they just didn't run with it hard enough.
Indeed.
So, they have to feature.
Yes.
They don't have to feature predominantly if you don't want.
No, indeed. Okay, yeah, but I think I've got these all down, and my brain, at least consciously and perhaps subconsciously, is doing some different bits and things with them. So yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's start up for the first section, which is the setup.
Right.
So, what do you want the normal world of this story to be?
Well, I think what we should have is a young man. Working at an Industrial Revolution era loom.
Okay.
And so he's there, sliding the shuttle backwards and forwards and, to make cloth in the loom. It's a big, clunking industrial. You do a pan out and you see lots of people side by side. It's an impersonal, this one guy in this set of looms, and dust is being thrown up from the looms, and he's sort of coughing and focusing and trying to keep the loom running.
My producer mind is going, I love it. Wanted Angelina Jolie, James McAvoy. The thing I loved in that was the loom. I want to see more of that loom. I like where you're going with this. Okay.
Absolutely.
So he's a weaver. He's an overseer. He's a cafe owner.
Well, I think what I was going for there is that he's there. He's not the overseer. He's one of the workers, but he aspires to own a cafe.
Okay.
He aspires to own a cafe. He's just sort of... I mean, cafes haven't really emerged as a concept, but he's got this idea of creating a space, on the sidewalk where, you can put some tables, people can relax, they can be brought, wine, they can chill out, and they can get away from the huge dust being thrown off these industrial looms that he's forced to work at every day.
So you've got the Industrial Revolution, you've also got the Enlightenment. He's seeing a lot of the industry, wants to bring some enlightenment to these situations. So... one of the things that you only have in the beginning is the fatal flaw of a character.
Yes.
He's stuck in this position. Why is he stuck? Why does he feel that he can't escape? What's wrong with him where he's being forced to not live his dream?
Well, I think that the key thing here is that he's poor, he doesn't have money, and he has these... He's not taken seriously because he has these kind of delusions. He's sort of... He talks to people endlessly about his cafe concept, and they're like, why, where would people do? Why would they sit around? Look, there's work to be done. So he's a dreamer.
Yeah, exactly. He's got all of these crazy, outlandish theories that women are people too, and it doesn't necessarily matter the colour of your skin is. It's your character. And they're going, what, are you crazy?
He's a man before his time,
right?
And I think that also the loom dust is getting to him, and he's starting to see little animated weevils leap around on the loom and start to talk to him.
He's got loom dust visions that are starting to appear to him. Okay, I think that's good enough for our setup. Do you want to hear what the AI had?
Oh, sure.
We meet our protagonist, a mouse named Milo who owns a small cafe in a factory town during the Industrial Revolution. He dreams of escaping the harsh and polluted life and finding a better place for himself and his friends. He is fascinated by the stories of his grandfather, who was an explorer and adventurer. One day, he receives a mysterious package from his grandfather's estate, a crystal skull with strange markings.
Interesting. Okay.
So in the setup, the ChatGPT has thought, I've been given an assignment where I need to cover all of these things.
Right.
We have the animated mouse, we have the Industrial Revolution, we have the cafe, we have the crystal skull. All that they've got really now to do is a hoverboard sequence, and they've ticked all of their boxes.
Yeah, good. And I'd been assuming that that there's not a requirement that we do all 5 of those things in the first thing. It's that we just need to hit them eventually, right?
No, but I mean, it's in a way, it's interesting to see what the AI does because it's been given a task. It's very eager to please, so it's getting them all out of the way as soon as possible.
Particularly that it's gone and that it hasn't gone to the complete extreme of doing all 5. It's done 4 of them. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's an. I mean, I would, of course, like to argue that, there's something slightly more exciting about what I'm developing there, but it is absolutely extraordinary that it can do as well as it does.
Yes. Okay, so now we're moving on to the next section, which is the complication.
Complication.
Do we have a name for our character?
Let us call him Antoine.
Okay. He is a man out of time.
Yeah.
Are we going to contrast that? So he's like Antoine Briggs? Or...
Well, I was just going for Antoine and his only name. I think they refer to him as Antoine the Loon. He's right. No one remembers his surname, but he's ridiculed by the other people working in the factory.
Or does everyone say Anthony, and it's like, it's Antoine?
There you go. That sounds good. I like that. Yes, it's like, no, I'm not. It's Antoine. You've got to dream. You've got to imagine being in the cafe.
Yes, there we are. Okay, so we have Antoine, and does he have a normal... He is poor. He probably can't afford a name. Does he... Is it like the Hyacinth Bouquet thing, where he sort of has it's sort of like, it's Briggs, but it's pronounced Brigise?
I think if you want, at the moment my mind is going, and I'm just sort of like stuck on the animated Weevils dance. I'm sort of seeing them before my eyes.
Then let's move on to the next section, which is the complication.
Indeed.
We have our normal way of life for Antoine.
Yes.
And now something happens that upsets his normal world.
Indeed. Yes, and I think it's that the Weevils are starting to talk to him about how there is there's a different possibilities that that he's not applying his mind, that there's that these looms could be different somehow.
So we usually sort of you can have the refusal of the call at this bit. Let's just unpack.
Yes.
That he's starting to have these sorts of visions, but then what's the rules of this world? Are we in the twilight where we're not sure if it's his craziness or whether they're real?
Yeah.
Is it Ratatouille where we know that the rat is real? Or
I think it's the former, in that we've started with the character of Antoine, and he seems real, but there we get this. We're building up the sense of him working late nights, sort of being a dreamer, coughing on the loom dust, and the Weevils are there initially, but then the sort of complication is that they turn around and start talking to him, and he's sort of questioning. He's like, what's he doesn't believe it. He's a dreamer, but he doesn't think that Weevils can talk.
Right. So it's sort of like he's weird enough already, that he's trying to shoo away the visions. They have some things that they're trying to tell him. Weevils pop up everywhere.
Yeah, indeed. And he just thinks, I must be working too hard. I've not got enough sleep. These things are getting him. But the strange thing is that the Weevils are persistent, and they seem to be making some sort of sense.
Did you see a movie in the 90s, the first MTV film called Joe's Apartment?
I don't know that I did.
Well, okay, that's fine. It's very much the same plot, but with cockroaches rather than Weevils.
Okay, there you go.
And New York City rather than the Industrial Revolution. So
yeah,
if we're going too far into that, if you have a big Bubsy Berkeley number where they all flush themselves down the toilet, then I'll sort of say you're accidentally veering into 90s MTV comedy. But
right, interesting stuff. I mean, everything is derivative. No, I was particularly thinking that the Weevils have got they've got little glasses, and they look quite intelligent, and they're talking about this theory of programming that could be done, that the looms could be programmed, and
right.
that the operators could be freed from their drudgery, is what I was
Do we have a hero Weevil? Are they all like minions at the moment? Is there a distinction one? Do we have a Papa Smurf?
I was thinking that we'd have one with a monocle, who's a bit of a dandy, a bit of a fop. I think we've got an earnest one who's there's a little group of these different weevils of sort of different. You've got the class system is in there, so you've got like a sort of a higher class weevil who's saying, "Oh, I don't know, we should be here on the looms," and you've got sort of the "Come on, mate," you've got your working class weevil saying, "Haven't you seen how all the patterns in the way the looms are operating? If you could just, program them, you could get like the different patterns and you could press a button and no one would have to be shuttling things backwards and forwards."
So do they have like a naming convention? Like with the Smurfs, it was they were named after their personalities. So
actually, maybe more interesting to make the person who's making the suggestion about the programming language to be Ada Love Weevil.
Right. So we're not bringing in Ada Lovelace and Babbage and the difference engine at this point. We're having a Weevil equivalent there.
I think so. I think that's the way to go.
Are we sure that nobody else can see them, or that nobody else appears to be around when they appear to him?
I think that they're talking to him while he's working on the loom. He looks around. Other people are ignoring it. It seems like it's going on just in his head from his perspective.
Okay. So here's the complication for the AI.
Milo decides to investigate the origin and meaning of the crystal skull, hoping it will lead him to a hidden treasure or a lost civilization. He enlists the help of his best friend, a rabbit named Ruby, who is a mechanic and inventor. She builds him a hoverboard using parts from the factory. They sneak out of the town at night and follow the clues on the skull, which point them to a secret tunnel under the factory.
Or it's everything is being ticked off. I don't necessarily know how a crystal skull leads you to a lost civilization, but hey, it does. Sometimes mice named Milo just know these things.
Indeed so. It's just sort of happening. Yeah, I mean, for me, again, it shows a remarkable creativity, although somewhat random on the part of the GPT. I mean, for me, I think, as you were saying before with, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, I mean, the exciting thing there was this idea of multidimensional beings, which wasn't really explored very well. I mean, I think... what I'm going for, what I want is the Weevils to kick off an early industrial revolution with an loom-based AI that manages to discover how to switch dimensions.
Okay. This is all very well and good, because now we are coming to the higher stake.
Higher stakes.
What happens to him at this point where he's moving from ignoring the Weevils to feeling absolutely he must progress with their ideas?
Yeah, so he's starting to follow the ideas of the Weevils in terms of mechanization of the looms. He's been resisting it, but he's discovering when he tries out their ideas, it actually, reduces his workload. He's able to sort of sit back. He's promoted to, the supervisor. He's encouraged to bring in, this mechanization throughout the factory. Actually, then it's kind of gets complicated because suddenly they don't need as many workers. And so the workers are laid off, and he's having to, deal with the fact that some of his fellow folks they're like, "What?" And they're starting to try and smash these machines. And the Weevils are saying, but no, there's more. And at home, he's built sort of a loom-based AI computer that starts to explain to him that there's more, that there's broader, that there are multiple dimensions, and that all he needs to do if he wants to achieve his dream of becoming the cafe owner is build a larger loom that will allow him to jump off into different points into the universe.
So
multiverse. Sorry, go on.
Usually within this sort of stage, when it's higher stakes, we also come up against the antagonist, right, or an antagonistic force.
Yes.
So, are we sort of saying that the Weevils have initially put him on this thing, that the Weevils are in the factory and they don't go home? He has gone off to do his own project at home. This is separate. This is an antagonistic force. This is talking about multiverse theory.
Well, I would say more that the Weevils he's now in sort of a team with the Weevils, and he needs the Weevils for the ideas, so that they're working together. The antagonist in some ways is the fellows who he was working with, who are now anti-technology. They're kind of like trying to destroy the looms, and he's trying to build a bigger loom in order to ultimately achieve his dream of jumping to a different part of the multiverse to be a cafe owner.
Why is he doing it? Is it because if he doesn't, that there's going to be a rival factory that's going to force them out? Is it going to be that he's realised that with this promotion he can make the money and have his own Age of Enlightenment cafe? Is there a love interest that comes in that he is trying to impress? What takes him from the point of the complication to the higher stakes?
all of those sound like nice ideas. To me, it's it's the antipathy of his fellows that seemed to be the driving thing. Like it seemed to be going so well. You know, the Weevils' ideas. He was collaborating with the Weevils. You know, he was getting promoted. He was moving towards the better life. But these fellows who he thought might have been his friends are kind of like now they're trying to stop his machines. They're trying to stop, you know.
So you've almost got a Luddite movement that has come up.
Yes.
And so we have our Luddites as the anti-force. So the person that sort of said Anthony earlier on.
Yeah.
This is no, it's Antoine.
It's Antoine. You've got to understand my dreams. No, you're taking our jobs.
So should we flesh him out a little bit?
The ringleader. Let's call him Steve. You know, because Eddie Izzard loves a Steve, and Steve is like, you know,
Steve Hardend,
and it's kind of like, no, Steve Hardend is forming a union to say, no, we cannot have more unlicensed automation taking away our jobs.
He's invested, but now we have Steve Hardhand, the Luddite in the Industrial Revolution.
Indeed.
Okay, so do you want to hear what the higher stakes were for the AI?
Sure. Yeah.
Milo and Ruby discover that the tunnel leads to an underground city, where a society of animals lives in harmony and prosperity. They are amazed by the advanced technology and culture of the city, which is powered by a giant crystal in the center. They are welcomed by the leader of the city, a lion named Leo, who reveals that he is Milo's long-lost uncle. He explains that the crystal skull is a key to activate the crystal's full potential, which can create anything one desires. He invites Milo and Ruby to stay in the city and join his family.
A world where a mouse can be the nephew to a lion. We're just brushing past that. The animated movies, anything happens, it could be by marriage. When
it's a Richard Scarry environment where there's all sorts of animals related to each other.
It does mean that there has been some kind of mouse lion union in the past for the nephew thing to happen. That's potentially a more interesting story than the AI is telling here. Even maybe we'll find out about that later. Strangely enough, obviously through different things, we are still coming to new technologies.
Yes, indeed.
And almost the creation of things out of nothing with your multiversal difference engine and these kinds of things. So
yeah, absolutely.
For someone that's steeped in AI, against the AI, there are some crossovers.
Yes.
I'm just going to ask, have you taken the Voight-Kamp test? Are you yourself aware that you're a human? You're happy with this?
Well, I wouldn't be to judge. I mean, as I've been saying to people recently, I may well be long dead, and this is just a simulation of me. The singularity may have happened multiple times on multiple levels. Who's to know?
And yet still you're being here and you're very nice, so that's hope for the future. If it's a simulation, well,
there's no reason not to be polite.
The AI representations are polite and friendly, which is very good. So we will now move on to our next section, which is the Dark Night of the Soul.
The Dark Night of the Soul.
The stakes are getting higher, some antagonistic force, everything is now starting to go wrong.
Yeah, so I mean, for Antoine, he's getting, really, really excited about what this now multidimensional AI that he's created out of a loom in his house with the Weevils of the team there. There's like this sort of team dynamic going on. And he can start to see visions of himself in different universes in the multiverse. One as a cafe owner, one playing the bassoon as he loved to do when he was a child. And he's so excited about this. But the mob has come outside his house. The Luddites are saying, no more machines, you're destroying our jobs. And
let's not gloss past the multiversal thing. Is one of the Weevils now setting up like an Apple or a Google campus around the machines? Like, what are some of the other versions that we see of them? Because that's always fun in multiversal stories.
Of the Weevils, right? And so in different multiverses, there are repeat versions of Antoine, somewhere he's of a different gender, somewhere he's of a different race. The Weevils themselves in different universes are sometimes different species. In one thing there's Antoinette, and she's from Chad, and there's a group of porpoises who are helping her with her multidimensional crossing element.
So everything is different. One could be steampunk, one could be crystal-based technology, others can be intelligent piles of sand that communicate through tide pools.
Absolutely. And as we pan out, I mean, I want lots of tracking shots of you can see the different universes, and you can see that they form into kind of a crystal skull shape. That that there's sort of the strange pattern of this froth of different universes in the multiverse forms into a giant crystal skull, which
So
is
it's almost
somehow
like,
ominous.
like a fractal of those sorts of things, but it sort of curves back round itself from another three-dimensional perspective and appears to be a crystalline skull.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here it seems to be ominous, but this is where everything seems to go wrong. We have this ominous presence in the multiverse,
Yes.
at the same time that we have the Luddites.
Indeed, like with pitchforks and torches burning fire things. He said with his vocabulary model crashing out of the back of his head. Outside saying no, and Antoine's no, I'm just on the Weevils, help me! I'm just on the cusp of getting there with the machine. And so we have a sort of process where the looms are spinning up and it's like all just about to work, but just at that point, the Luddites are starting to shake the foundations of the building and knock things, and it's oh no, it's gonna work. And but so Antoine, in a desperate attempt to get towards his vision of the cafe ownership somewhere in the multiverse, jumps in and. At the same time, the Luddites burst into the room and, no, we must destroy the machine. And Steve Hardhead's like, you will know, and dives after him. And so now we have Antoine and Steve falling through a series of different multiverses, changing into being made out of Play-Doh, being made out of Lego, being made out of water, and landing on a hoverboards and starting to chase each other. And sort of Steve is like, oh, I'm going to get you, as he chases after Antoine.
Sure, so we have a multi-dimensional hoverboard. Now, I don't know if this is something that you're potentially saving. This is an idea. Feel free to ignore it. Because this is all is lost. And to ramp up the idea of the thing, why doesn't Steve Hardhand become the avatar of the Crystal Skull? Hardhand's Crystal Skull.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I mean, I think what we see is a kind of again, we have this big long shot of the multiverse, and we're seeing the representations of Antoine and Steve follow through it, and that's like the Crystal Skull turns to look at Steve and notices like there's a kindred spirit there of something about death and destruction is of joy. And so next time we see Steve, we see sort of like a kind of like spectral skull kind of merge with his head, and his eyes kind of go into a bright fire.
I mean, it can be an allegory for AI and computer learning and the internet as it stands. I mean, it's a huge force for progress and change and wonder, but it's also a huge tool for hate and discrimination and these sorts of things as well.
Indeed.
Any large step forward in technology has you don't necessarily have a lot of the wonderful things that we have now if we didn't have the Second World War, where technology was forced to move certain fields of science forward.
Well, indeed. I mean, technology, of course, is in and of itself neutral and can be used for good or evil, or even the concepts of good and evil are ones that we evolve over time. But no, absolutely. I mean, it's. I
mean, if you look at sort of Turing and what they were doing in Bletchley House, with the Colossus breaking the Enigma code, that that's the father of modern computing, and obviously that you have certain research that was going through in terms of new materials and things like that, and even looking at quantum and ignoring the philosophy of it, but sort of saying these are the things to move technology forward because they wanted to blow people up.
But necessity being the mother of invention. I mean, I think times of all sorts of intensity cause humans to try and innovate faster, but the side effects of that can be good and bad and bad and good and good and bad, and it's sort of I think it's almost impossible to separate the good and the bad.
So here we have that essentially it seems that the connection to the multiverse has been lost from Antoine's side, that you have all of the negative aspects of this multiversal technology have merged with Steve Crystal Skull Hardhand, and all appears to be lost.
Yeah, I think now, like, Steve Hardhand seems to be on the cusp of being able to wrest control of the multiversal, teleportation, as it were, the ability to move between these things, that to actually understand and go with the flow of the multiverse is becoming something now that Steve is taking over with his Luddite mentality of wanting to destroy things. And Antoine, I think we can have sort of a ongoing chase sequence where it seems like Antoine is going to escape, and then Steve manages to catch him in some sort of weird sort of sub universe that has nothing in it, and so Antoine is now locked and stuck there by himself with the Weevils, as Steve laughs maniacally and says, yes, the multiverse is mine.
Right, well, exactly. And, he can take it over one dimension at a time by using all of the negative resources from all of them.
Indeed.
Okay, so I think we've got a pretty dark night of the soul there. Do you want to hear what the AI had for their dark night?
Milo is tempted by Leo's offer, but Ruby senses something is wrong. She discovers that Leo is actually a tyrant who rules the city with an iron fist. He plans to use the crystal skull to unleash the crystal's destructive power and destroy the factory town above, which he blames for polluting and exploiting the land. He also intends to enslave Milo and Ruby and use their skills for his own benefit. Ruby tries to warn Milo, but he doesn't believe her. He accuses her of being jealous and selfish, and sides with Leo.
Because this is Dark Knight, but he's siding with the villain.
Right. Oh, my goodness.
All a bit Wakanda Forever at the moment. It's not the first time that they've done that, which either suggests that Marvel movies may be getting a bit formulaic, or that Chat GPT, Bing, AI, all of them sort of tend to like the Marvel movies as well. They're popular. Lots of people talk about them.
Indeed.
Okay. So our next section is called Getting It Together.
Getting it together.
And to define what the goal is, that how he thinks he may be able to stop.
Absolutely.
Crystal Skull, Hard Hand Steve.
Yes, so we've got Antoine is, trapped in this tiny, curved up back universe, but he's there with the Weevils. And the Weevils are trying to buoy his spirits and say, no, we can do it. We can. And he's like, no.
We can fix it. We can mend it.
Yeah, but Antoine is like, no, how can I escape from this terrible prison? But they're like, no. It's all about, the power of imagination, the power of love. You need to open out your heart. You got to look within. And so the Weevils encourage him to...
At this point, generally in an animated film, this would be where they would burst out into song.
Absolutely.
So let's try that. Let's sort of see how the song would go. It's like, you've got to believe in your heart. It's at the centre of your chest, but your brain's important too. You can win the day if you understand that 1 and 1 makes 2, brains and heart.
Fantastic. I can't sing, but we'll have you as the musical director.
I can't either, as we've just well established.
But yeah, I think what we've got now is that the Weevils take on a sort of... They all start to look a bit Buddhist, wearing orange robes and sort of like shaving their little fur off the backs of their heads, and they're saying it's all about meditation.
Well, have they been transformed by their journey, meditation, and becoming one with everything? They've been dolphins, they've been people, they've been lumps of sand, they've been water, they've been the sky and the earth and the sea.
Yes, I think let's have them now as kind of sentient floating goldfish with the orange robes. They're sort of like floating goldfish around, but what they're all about is saying you need to look within. If you can open up your heart chakra, you can be even bigger than the multiverse.
So basically, they have been through the multiverse with Antoine. But whereas they have given themselves up to the exploration of ideas, he has been locked in conflict.
Absolutely.
So if you're in a conflict with something, the only guarantee is that both of you are going to lose something.
Indeed. So I think they're asking Antoine to embrace the change and to become bigger than his own personal desires and wishes, and to understand that the true way to move between worlds is to move your internal perspective.
We have a training montage of our Shaolin fish weevils.
Exactly, absolutely.
Training him to centre himself and all the rest of it. So let's explain the montage for me. How are we going to go from this thing of saying he should open to his mind to him opening his mind and escaping? Yeah,
so we've got a montage sequence where the floating goldfish are doing what they can with their limited resources to recreate a series of classic mountain Shaolin tasks. So they're all above him, sort of spouting water on him, so he's sitting under a waterfall with water hitting on his head. They are, holding him out in strange poses, so he's like sort of Jedi-like balanced on one toe.
And obviously he falls down, that we see here in this null universe outside time and space. It could be a day, it could be a month, it could be 10,000 years.
Absolutely. He unfortunately, so the classic mistake, of course, from Steve Hardhand is that he's put put Antoine in a place where time doesn't really exist,
Right.
and so now he has like an infinitude of time to master the internal vipassana matrix of the soul and become like sort of almost like a kind of godlike figure.
I can see the T-shirts now. I can see that this is the animated movie that kids have been crying out for. Mummy, what is the internal element of the soul? Well, obviously, that depends upon the alignment of your chakras.
There you go, absolutely.
It opens conversations. I mean, they say we talk down to children. I do not think you're doing that with this animated movie.
Oh, no. I think we want them to explore every aspect of their soul.
He has powered up. He has marshalled his skills. He is still one against a multiverse.
Indeed. But I think the way I visualize it at the moment is that as his heart chakra opens and he connects with his true inner self, which is, I think, as it is for all of us, we are all, incarnations of a giant multiversal spirit, that we now see that he and his heart expand beyond the null universe that he's in, and starts expanding, that the heart and his love expand through all the different multiverses. And in the different multiverses, we see different versions of Steve Hardhand breaking equipment, destroying things, trying to set back the paths of progress. And as Antoine's heart sort of like, there's sort of like, it's almost like a supernova shockwave going out of like little components of love and idea and hope and joy.
Well, maybe that's how he fights, right? Because so that, we can sort of see the takeover, that we can see actually that, conquest has begun. He hasn't sort of started on his own Earth yet, but maybe, Steve Hardhand has taken over multiple realities. However, why he is going about multiversity and bringing all of these opposing forces in, perhaps the way to counter that is that rather than be the many, you be the one. And so Antoine's view is alignment. Indeed. So rather than bringing in alternate versions of himself to conflict, he tries to align so that he becomes, rather than an opposing force of multiplicity, he becomes a universal one throughout universes.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I sort of see Steve at different stages of success in different universes, in different incarnations of himself, overturning progress, bringing things burning back, but then, as Anton's love...
Again, I am seeing the kids going, Mummy, what is this that I'm watching? I mean, I like it. I'm trying quite hard to envisage what the toys in McDonald's are going to be.
Yes, there's going to be the oneness burger.
Yes. The one with everything.
Absolutely.
All the toppings. Okay, well, here we have. We've got it, getting it together, that he has set himself up as the universal, the chosen one, because he has chosen to be the one, against our multiversal crystal skull-headed Luddite. Getting it together for the AI.
Ruby manages to escape from Leo's guards and contacts her other friends in the factory town, a fox named Felix, who is a journalist, a bear named Bruno, who is a boxer, and a squirrel named Sally, who is a singer. They decide to form a resistance group and stop Leo's plan. They infiltrate the underground city using Ruby's hoverboard and other gadgets. They find Milo and try to convince him to join them, but he refuses.
I mean, it's quite ballsy of the AI to have a protagonist, Milo, that we follow through, and that's his dream, and then suddenly it becomes Ruby's journey half the way through.
There you go. It's able to turn over established approaches.
I also like it. Kind of likes like the heist trope, or that you've got to get your team together getting it together, because this is the getting it together, the section. How a boxer, a singer, and a journalist tie together in this underground crystal-powered city ruled by a despotic lion and his now evil nephew Milo. Yeah. Which again, Empire Strikes Back style turn there. He's gone all. Dark Sith on us.
It's got all Greek, yes.
So there we are. That's they're getting it together, and now we move to the finale.
Yes.
So obviously this is the big crescendo. This two opposing forces meeting. What that final battle is. What we expect to happen may be subverted. It may not.
Yeah. So I think what we see then is played out across multiple different multiverses is. Steve, with Crystal Skull motif on each stage, like in some cases initially just completely blown away by waves of love, but like there's a sort of, the crystal skull is sort of providing.
Let's we've got to handhold the kiddies a little bit here.
Sure.
So he has become the universal constant. I don't necessarily know how to explain it. I'm sure Pixar can do a good job, right? Well, you've got to set the stage for where the final confrontation will be. Is it that, he discovers outside of time that, and he brings his attentions back town because the next dimension that Steve is going to attack is his home dimension?
Well, I was thinking, that can be, we can put it on the home thing. I think the key thing that I wanted to build up is a sort of pattern of, like as Antoine's sort of consciousness of love, sweeps through an individual universe, that the initial versions of Steve with the crystal skull are just sort of taken aback and then suddenly they're transformed. But but having a pattern of that, we start to see that Steve and the crystal skull are now, they're getting ahead. They're realizing that this is happening across the different universes, and they're starting to plot about how they can hide and protect themselves from the love.
Again, animated future. How would this go in a song?
I want to hide myself from love.
Yeah.
I want to eat everybody's hearts. I want to take their brains and bash them in because I'm not very nice.
That sounds perfect to
All right,
me.
there we
Yeah,
go.
there we go.
So that's established that he wants to destroy. I guess in a way that he also wants to be the one, but through destruction rather than creation. We have our yin and we have our yang.
Yang, yes, indeed. And I think so. Ultimately, what we have is, so we say, bring it back to the home dimension and the factory, where it all began. The Luddites are outside and shaking the foundations of the different factories, trying to bring them down. Now with an armored Steve, there is like a now ferrous tendrils on the crystal skulls. It's getting bigger and stronger, whatever. And
he's become more demonic. The skull has sort of taken over his body.
Demonic, and then sort of we have the.
This is where we get the action figure. This is our Skeletor.
Absolutely, and then Antoine, in this sort of like large floating Buddha in the lotus position with the different goldfish floating around him, come together, and the two of them like crash together above the factories that
I
are
know
starting
who we're
to burn.
supposed to root for, but I know which action figure I'm getting out of those two.
But they come together, and now we're flipped in a sort of flashback to earlier days, and we see both Steve and Antoine, sort of scrubbing in the dirt as urchins and going to they don't have school properly, but they have sort of a Sunday school.
Maybe the reason that they really hate each other is that they're brothers.
There we go. It turns out that they're brothers, and actually, they had made a pact together that they would open a cafe together, but Antoine had sort of forgotten Steve's love, and so the twist is it turns out that they're brothers, and that what it ultimately takes. And Steve was the younger brother, and Anton always seemed to ignore him. And Anton breaks down and says, "But no, you were always my hero. You were my hero." And finally, Steve opens up to love.
Okay. So where we have that we figured that there would be a big epic fight and destruction, perhaps we have the yin and the yang, we have integration.
Indeed.
That we have, even though we have destructive forces, you cannot build until you have destroyed the old, or all of these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Maybe they merge into one being. Maybe they become Antweave.
Antweave, indeed.
Or Stanton.
Indeed, they become a new universal, multiversal force for guiding love, and we now see, and as the integration of the two of them ripples out through the different multiverses, we see that the bigger picture of the crystal skull now becomes a kind of a giant lotus flower.
Or that you have the crystal skull, but with the merging, the flesh grows on the crystal skull to the face of a Buddha.
Yes, there you go. The lotus flowers come in and fill in to the face of the Buddha. Sounds
but
good to me.
for the kids, Super Buddha.
Super Buddha.
With,
absolutely.
Glowing animated super suit and all of the rest.
Absolutely.
Of it. The Noble Tenfold Path, is a hard sell. But if you have it as the special weapon on the action figure box,
absolutely.
There we are. So, do you want to hear what the
totally
was for the AI?
Leo activates the crystal skull and unleashes a powerful beam of energy that starts to crack the ground above. The factory town begins to collapse and panic ensues. Milo realizes his mistake and decides to help his friends. He apologizes to Ruby and tells her he loves her. They join forces with Felix, Bruno, and Sally, and fight their way to the crystal chamber. They confront Leo, who reveals that he is not really Milo's uncle, but an imposter who killed Milo's grandfather and stole his identity. He also reveals that he is not an animal, but a human in disguise.
Okay.
I mean, Twisty McTwisterson.
He hates animals and wants to wipe them out. He tries to kill Milo and his friends with the crystal skull, but they manage to dodge his attacks and destroy the skull. The crystal loses its power and explodes, causing the underground city to collapse.
Obviously, we've asked it to write an action movie. In previous ones, it has destroyed the continent of Atlantis. It seems to kind of like brush past genocide quite a lot. Is that a sign of Twitter? Is that, one of these things where you're reading into its id and thinking, okay, the wanton destruction of civilization to progress the plot forward is a...
it's interesting that you mentioned Twitter a couple of times. I'm not sure if necessarily Twitter was in the training data for GPT-4, but certainly I think lots of Reddit and other things from the web were.
Right, yeah.
And it may well be that it'd be Twitter. But
I know that Elon Musk limited the access to Twitter to the OpenAI model because he was giving it into free when they were a non-profit, which assumes that there was a certain
at least
amount of Twitter...
At some point, although, again, how much was being used in the... But
I'm not saying it's entirely limited to Twitter, but in terms of generation of real-time text, which it's a language model that is realistic, certainly Twitter has to be a component of it, I feel.
It seems to me entirely plausible that it is, but it's also plausible that it isn't, because even if you remove Twitter, there's still an extraordinary amount of text available. But I think, certainly... when we're sort of... what's interesting about its ability to generate these kinds of plots is it gives you, reinforces the idea that there are patterns, that there are higher order patterns. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what these large language models are doing is they're looking at higher order statistics over huge volumes of text data.
Rather than a reflection of an underlying consciousness of the AI, it's actually a sobering wake-up call because it's just mirroring the genocidal tendencies within the humanities game the language from.
Absolutely. I think that will reflect that we see a lot of those kind of tropes of destruction in action films.
Right.
And I don't think that it tells us anything about what the AI consciousness is.
I would ask if you do feel how far we are away from the singularity. Maybe I'll save that for later. It might tie into the finale because we are about integration of the positive, the negative, the yin, the yang, the destructive, and the building, love and hate being flip sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. What is your final image?
Final image.
Well, and I think the final image is that we have as we said, there's this big transformation of the multiverse with the integrated thing, and we see amongst the many other possibilities, we see one universe where Antoine is running a cafe with the Weevils at his side. And
is this a multiverse where it's Anton, or is this our merged person? Is this
no? I think this
is Stanton.
I think this is now we're seeing that the Stanton, that the merged thing is sort of like the beatific presence over everywhere, but within that,
within the merging, has it healed the previous dimensions?
Yeah.
Because it was outside time. The events that led up to this multiversal destruction are now reset.
So universes that maybe made of Play-Doh or all of water, which we'd seen before undergoing some trauma, we now see healed. And then in amongst that montage, we also see one universe where Anton, as he was at the beginning of the universe with the Weevils running a cafe, and we see Steve in another universe, working at looms in a much more enlightened environment, but people are doing their hand labour.
We could have it even simpler if you want to, because the idea of the final image is it sort of kind of repeats where we were back at the beginning.
Right.
We've had this universal reset.
Yes.
And you could have that where you replay the earlier scene where he's sort of saying Anthony, and he goes, it's Antoine.
Yes.
And then he sort of says, okay.
Yeah.
Antoine. We've been fighting for too long. We saved together some money. I think we should set up that cafe together.
Excellent.
Because, it's
good.
there. It's a little bit, but, it is that progression. It shows their growth.
I think that that they have resolved their differences and are looking to their dreams. I think that's great.
Yeah, so there we are. So we have this big cosmic thing, but actually the smaller realisation of kindness to others. That's our final image. Do you want to hear the final image for the AI?
Oh, yes.
Milo and his friends manage to escape from the rubble and return to the surface. They see that the factory town has been partially destroyed, but also partially transformed by the crystal's energy. Some buildings have been turned into trees, flowers, or fountains. Some machines have been turned into animals or toys. Some people have been turned into animals or vice versa. The town is now a colorful and chaotic mix of nature and technology, where everyone lives together in peace and harmony. Milo hugs Ruby and kisses her. He says that he has found his true home.
Fantastic.
I mean, the themes of integration, I mean, are not necessarily that dissimilar.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was a good story from the AI. One thing I didn't quite follow. Was there something about? So it switched to Ruby. Was there something what was Milo apologizing for? Was there something? Had Milo gone off on some other different path?
Milo had sided with Leo.
Oh, it was Milo.
His grandfather, uncle,
right.
Human in a suit.
Right. There we go. And it was up to then the protagonist focus switched to Ruby. Interesting. Yeah. Good show.
Right, so there's a couple of things that remain. I have the title that the AI has come up with,
okay,
and I have a tagline that they have come up with.
Okay, right.
I will share that with you, and then I will ask for you to think of something. I can help you around, but we've got to think of a title and a tagline for your movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
First
of all, given what you know of the AI, do you have any predictions for what you think that may have come up with as the
title of the movie? It was. What did we have in the different sort of themes all the way through? It was. How about Industrial Evolution as the title?
I mean, no.
Okay.
It's simpler than that. It's called Crystal Skulls.
Okay. All right. Although there was only one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe you've looked into the title of this movie.
To what the title that I would give to the one that we've created together.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think I might call it Round and Round the Multiverse.
Yeah, I mean, that's more of a kiddie thing, but I quite like Industrial Evolution.
Industrial Evolution, yeah, we could take that.
Because they worked hard at it.
Yes,
I mean, we can have that as the tagline. The tagline for the AI was a mouse-tastic adventure that will rock your world.
Oh, there you go. That's pretty good, yeah.
So we have... what was the title again?
So I think it was... We could call it Industrial Evolution Round and Round the Multiverse.
There you go. I think that's absolutely great.
Well, nice one. Good fun.
Make me a coffee with everything was was going to be my pitch, but no, it will be Industrial Evolution versus Crystal Skulls.
There we go.
So that's the end of the podcast. Now is the time if you would like to tell people what you're doing and where they can find you. This is where.
Yeah, well, also, to follow my comedy, you can go to comedy.neurogrid.com. Follow me at Tansaku, Tansaku on Instagram. To get that, I do come bundled with a fantastic drinks offer. If you follow me on Instagram and see 2 of my comedy shows, I'll buy you a drink. Yeah, can't say fairer than that. Also, we're just starting up a new Sunset Comedy Club in Harrow, in the Junction. So Sunset Comedy Club on Facebook and all good social media outlets. That's we're really excited about starting that up. punchlinepartners.com/sign_up to get further private beta access to our sort of comedic writer support AI system, if you'd like to get early access to that. I think that's all my main things. Yeah, it's thank you so much for having me. I must say, at some level, I do think we've had the singularity several times over. But the question becomes, how soon will the singularity come in this universe? And I think the answer is pretty soon.
Yeah. Oh, well, as you can say, it may have already happened.
Indeed.
If you want to try and catch a comedy show before the singularity makes its presence even more known, you can come to the Comedy Cat in Ealing every Saturday. Links in the description. See you next time.